death to the Daleks is a power failure in the TARDIS draws it off course, and the Doctor and Sarah Jane Smith end up stranded on the bleak planet of Exelon. They soon meet members of an Earth expedition in a similar situation. The humans are searching for a rare mineral, but first they must find out what is draining their power and avoid what's inside another grounded spaceship. The Doctor's oldest enemies, the Daleks. This serial was actually quite interesting. I quite enjoyed it very much. This is actually considered one of the best Dalek stories, actually. The location for filming this, of course, is in a quarry. But it was very alien looking. It was very nicely done, and it really gave the sense that the planet's just been drained of everything, like life, energy, just everything. It just looked desolate. It was a perfect setting. And the studio filming actually fit, when they designed it, actually made it look like the whole thing was done on location filming. But it was some of it was done in studio. But it just looked seamless. It was very well done. This is actually the first time the entire serial was filmed out of sequence, both in the filming at location and also in studio. Usually in studio they do it in linear, in order, to make it easier and so they could be done. But they decided to do it out of sequence for odd reasons, which was quite strange, but at the same time, this is a weird story, and it kind of fit what was going on, because there was just a lot of mayhem going on. The Daleks were an interesting situation here, because for once, when they land on the planet, when they try and kill people, they find they can't. Their energy guns just do not work. So they have to kind of create an alliance between the humans and the Doctor and themselves to figure out what is going on. Of course, this doesn't last. The Daleks secretly create a secret weapon to replace their ray guns, and it's just basically, it's almost like a machine gun, kind of. It just shoots out these little, like bullets or rocks, or I don't know what it is. You don't really see what's shooting out. You just hear the gun. It's like spring loaded, maybe. So you just hear poof, 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 and it shoots at something and it kills. And it doesn't require any power or anything, just some force or some simple spring or mechanism to do it. And it was quite threatening. It kind of made you think of, because, the Daleks are already fascist enough already, it kind of really made you think of World War II Nazis and their Thompson machine guns, or whatever machine guns the Nazis used. So it kind of made you think of that a little bit. It was quite interesting. The character development for some of these characters were quite interesting. Especially one of the Earth characters. He had a story arc to where he was trying to find glory, and then towards the end decided not to go for glory and actually sacrifices himself for the greater good. It was a nice little development for him. You can actually believe throughout the story of him reaching this point. It was very well done. We got the characters of the Exelons. The Exelons were quite interesting. They themselves looked drained and just weak, and just old and raggedy. They look like rotting corpses, actually. It was interesting because half the world, there's this large crystal clean, pure white city. That is this living city that is just like a supercomputer that is just living, absorbing energy from everywhere to live, and it's self-cleaning, self-maintaining. It takes care of itself. And over the years, some of the Exelons have worshipped this thing and treated it as a god, and have actually made sacrifices to it, while some want to try and figure out a way to destroy it or stop it, so everything could go back to the way it was, because they were a very advanced species at one point, and they could space travel. They discovered this. They could do. They were very far ahead of everybody else in the universe, but because of the city, that depleted. So you got these two different sides to this whole of the Exelons, and the ones that were religious were very I wouldn't say barbaric, but very Aztecian. They wore cloaks. They wore hoods. Although their rituals seem very not Aztecian, but very I guess barbarian, almost kind of like Temple of Doom religion of a thuggy cult almost. It was very much like that. Their chanting was very eerie and scary. It was pretty good. The city itself was quite interesting. And when you go inside it, it's actually, the whole city is quite weird when you go into it. It's a series of rooms and puzzles. And you figure out along the way that if you were intelligent enough to solve all these different puzzles, you get to help, I guess, maintain the brain itself or control it or this or that. It was quite really interesting. And those little puzzles, each of them were very unique, but at the same time, it kind of reminded me of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. In fact, many people, because I find Doctor Who with some of these images, people, somebody has once actually commented, it's like, this is like the Last Crusade, you know, especially when writing the name, stepping on the words that say God's name. In Last Crusade, it's very similar to hopscotch part of the game, to where in Doctor Who, to where he had to step on the white patterns on the floor instead of the red ones. It was very similar to that. It's kind of funny, and yeah, it was the unique games, very puzzles and stuff. Very simple for something like the Doctor and maybe some of us, but complex to some of these different people. And it's actually interesting how the Doctor decided to solve everything when he got to the brain at last. To the brain, he figured out, well, let's give him a nervous breakdown. It was kind of interesting. And when the city actually has a nervous breakdown, the last thing we see of it is it just starts melting and collapsing in on itself. And the way the melting looked, it was just so... Oh, it was not really gruesome, I would say, but it was just unique and awe-inspiring almost. And you could tell, yes, it's a styrofoam building, and they just put blow hot air on it from a hairdryer possibly, and see it kind of burnt and then melt off, almost like marshmallows or something. It was interesting, but the sound effect was the most creepy. I actually had to rewatch it first because I wasn't too sure I heard it correctly. But when the city is collapsing, you hear screams, and you can interpret it as other people living in the city, and or the city itself crying out in pain. And it was just eerie, just hearing that. I was just like, oh man, it almost made you pity the city in a way. There were other creatures in there as well. There's something called the root of the city, which is kind of looks like, if you've seen the original and the remake of the War of the Worlds, you know, that camera eye that's on a long tube. That's pretty much what the root looked like, and that's what I thought it was. When it jabs something, it you know, sparks fly because it's like super heat, I guess, maybe, or something. But it strikes something, they burst into flames and die. It was quite interesting. And again, Sarah Jane Smith is, again, you know, she does go on her own. She actually gets involved and friendly with the Excellence before the Doctor does, and she gets the Doctor involved with them, and they split up because they need to do two different things. So the Doctor has her help the humans set up everything, get the raw mineral they need to save the Earth onto their spaceship, so when the power comes back, they can just flee and run away from the Daleks. She sets all that up. She helps this one Earth expedition person trick a Dalek and escape. You know, I'm really proud of Sarah Jane Smith. You know, after you know, Liz Shaw, Joe Grant, you know, Liz Shaw was the last, like I said, the last time I felt they were progressing with female companions in Doctor Who. Jo was kind of in the middle. She kind of wasn't progressing the women because she seemed kind of ditzy, but at the same time she kind of was, because even though she wasn't as smart as the Doctor, she was always asking questions. She did do her own thing, but with Sarah Jane Smith, she really is progressing. I mean, she can take care of the show herself, if anything, which is probably one of the reasons why a few years ago they gave her her own show, the Sarah Jane Adventures. So, you know, she basically, so she continues the story in her own way. She does what needs to be done, and the Doctor does his own thing to save the day. So in the way, they both saved the day at the same time, and I like that. It was all good. It was fun. The Daleks as usual. You know, it was good fun. And there's one thing I have to point out, and I don't want to forget it yet. There's this one point when they're testing out their new gun. They shoot it at a model TARDIS, and it bursts into several different pieces when they shoot at it. And kind of makes you wonder, how many of those do they have in their ships? And they just vent out their anger on a small TARDIS and hoping to blow it up. It's actually kind of funny when you think about it. Uh, Overall, good story, good characters, good setting and locations. Um, Very good costume work, particularly with the Axelons, the way they look. Yes, they are just guys in rubber suits, but they still looked good. Um, I have to give this serial 3 stars out of 5. We are about now, I'd say, halfway through. Just a little over halfway through John Pertwee's last year. We have 2 more stories to go, and I am actually dreading it. Yes, I really do want to get to the 4th Doctor. I really want to get to the 4th Doctor, but at the same time, I do not want John Pertwee's era to end. It is getting really sad getting towards the end. And I will see you on the next review. Till then.